Pete Rose passing away at the age of 83, his former teammate Johnny Bench a little bit later on. Growing up in Cincinnati, we all wanted to wear number 14. We all were sliding head first. We wanted to have the same haircut as Pete Rose. So he certainly had an impact on me. My first autograph was from Pete Rose, and he wasn't charging back then. But I have had many, many interviews with him, interactions with him. He said a lot of things to me on my radio show. And when I first got to ESPN was 1989. And I left CNN, went to ESPN. And then a few months later, I'm on the 11 o'clock Sports Center with Bob Lee, one of the great sports journalists in history. So I come in, and the Pete Rose situation's unfolding right in front of me. Now, I used to gamble, and one of my bookies used to take bets from Pete Rose. So I say to Bob Lee, Bob, I got information here, and I'll put that coverage up against any network of what we did covering Pete Rose, in large part because of Bob. But I did have a connection, and I knew exactly what was going on with his betting. Now, I never found out if he bet while he was a player on the Reds, against the Reds. And I know that there's this outpouring of sympathy and sentiment for Pete Rose to be in the Hall of Fame. Nothing has changed from yesterday, today, to a week ago with Pete Rose. It's just sentiment here to get him in the Hall of Fame. And would I like to see Pete in the Hall of Fame? It's a museum. If you want to tell the story of baseball, then do it that way. Because I know that there'll be a lot of people, old school, say, well, he stained the game, embarrassed the game. He never really apologized until he was writing a book. I mean, there's so many angles to this, and I don't want this to take over the show because there's nothing new that I can add to this that I haven't already told you about. Whether he told me that he only bet on the Reds to win. He had never said that before. So every game he was betting on them to win, and it was a game that he was managing. I did wonder about this, too. Let's say Pete didn't manage until the 6th year he got out of baseball. He retires, 5-year window, he goes into the Hall of Fame first ballot. The Reds bring him back, and they want him to manage. Would baseball take him out of the Hall of Fame? And understand this, the Hall of Fame is different, separate from Major League Baseball. This is owned and operated separately. Now, do they fall in line with Major League Baseball? They do. But they do it by choice. If the Hall of Fame said, we want Pete on the ballot, he could be on the ballot. Jeff Idelson, for years, has said that to us. He runs the Hall of Fame. If they chose to do that. Now, once again, it's the Baseball Hall of Fame. It's not the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. But if they wanted him on the ballot, they could put him on the ballot. But all I've ever said is it's like he cheated in grad school. I can't take away his undergraduate degree. And he was summa cum laude when he was, undergrad. And then he became a manager, and then he's betting on baseball. And if you look at the wording here of, what they put out as far as, Pete's suspension, and I think people have this misunderstood on, it's not a lifetime ban, but that's the way it's phrased. It's an employment ban. He can't work in baseball. He could never work in baseball. And that's what people, I think, forgot. And if you look at what, the rule that he broke, any player, umpire, or club or league official or employee who shall bet any sum whatsoever upon any baseball game in connection with which the bettor has a duty to perform shall be declared permanently ineligible. So it's not a lifetime ban. This is permanently ineligible from working in baseball. That's really the punishment here. And then you have people who are saying, well, it's a lifetime ban. His life is over. Is the ban over? Well, it wasn't a lifetime ban. It was permanently ineligible from holding a job in Major League Baseball. I want to bring back a clip that I had with Pete Rose. And, once again, we talked about a variety of things, but I did ask him about maybe getting into the Hall of Fame posthumously.
Dan, I make one thing clear that if I ever get an opportunity to go to the Hall of Fame, I'll be the happiest guy in the world.
Do you think it'll happen before you die,
I know what
Pete?
it means. I don't know. I still haven't given up on Bud Selig, and I know you know this as well as I. I mean, whenever someone asks Bud Selig about Pete Rose, he says, "Well, we're thinking about it." I mean, if you're not going to give me an opportunity, Bud, please just tell me. And you won't bother him. I won't send him letters. No one from my side will bother him. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Would you rather know now that you'll never get into the Hall of Fame as opposed to that possibility of getting into the Hall of Fame?
Well, it ain't going to help me a damn bit if I'm dead. I mean, the Hall of Fame's for your family and your friends anyway. But, like it was sad, I think, the way they handled Ron Santo. Ron Santo died, and next year they put him in.
I know. That broke my heart.
I think in baseball, the more Hall of Famers you have walking around, especially the more Hall of Famers you have walking around talking to people, the better off your sport is. And I'm not going to break the rules again. I mean, people ought to know that. I mean, I've been suspended 23 years. It cost me a lot. You could suspend these guys making $20 million for a long time, and they're not going to lose as much as I did. Now, I'm not whining now. I'm just telling you the facts of the situation. And, one thing I never did, Dan, and you'll agree with this, I never cheated the people when I played the game of baseball. Okay? Regardless of what I did, I always played my ass off when I played the game of baseball. I always put the fans first. I understood the importance of the fans, how important the fans were to the game. And I guess that's somewhat the reason I played the way I did. And I think I influenced my teammates. And you don't have bad things said about me to my teammates. I'm not one of these guys that's been in a bar fight, run red lights, beat somebody up. I mean, you don't ever read it. The only thing you ever read about me is I gambled and nothing else. And if you have, I don't know what it would be. So, I made a mistake. I made a big mistake, a huge mistake. And when Giamatti told me to reconfigure my life, I misunderstood him. I thought when he said reconfigure my life, that meant no more illegal gambling, which I don't do. Be very close to the people you associate with, which I do. But what he meant, and it took me years to understand this, take responsibility for what I did. And I did take responsibility for it. But there's still people that just won't let it go away. We're talking about something, Dan, that happened. I was suspended in 1989. 89. It's time to get over it, I think.
That's from July 25th, 2013. It took Pete a long time to say he was sorry or show any contrition. And I know that bothered the previous commissioner, Bud Selig. And we had public conversations on my radio show. We had private conversations about Pete Rose. And it just became a story that they wanted to go away. But every year at Cooperstown, Pete would be there signing autographs. Meanwhile, you would have other people having their day at Cooperstown. But Pete would sign autographs. Nobody has benefited more from not being in the Hall of Fame than Pete Rose, because now he became more of an attraction. Now that there was let's root for Pete to get into the Hall of Fame, a cause, if you will. And I've always said that, and what Pete said there, I never got cheated, ever, when I went to see Pete Rose play. Never. And he won more games than anybody. We know all of the stats. But I think Pete thought that was enough, that there would be an overwhelming sentiment of one of the great players of all time. He's got to be in the Hall of Fame. Well, he doesn't. And now it would be hypocritical if you put him into the Hall of Fame. Now. Because why are you putting him in now? Nothing's changed unless you're saying we punished him. Now for his family's sake or baseball's sake, we're going to put him in the Hall of Fame. If you want to put the steroid guys in there, put it in. Put them in. Even if you do that, maybe you don't let them have their day where they give a speech. You're in the Hall of Fame. There is no speech. We want to tell the story of baseball. Fine. But Pete Rose, Pete is his own worst nightmare, his own worst enemy. What made him great is what kept him out of the Hall of Fame. He could just never say, sorry, what can I do to give back to baseball? And I remember having a conversation with Commissioner Seelig. And I brought up the idea of having Pete go through the minor leagues and just tell the players what he sacrificed, what he lost, and do it on his own dime and just go around and tell people, this is a cautionary tale. You can have everything and you can lose it all. And he was really, really popular. Not just baseball, not sports popular. Pete was popular. And that might have resonated with some people. And it would certainly resonate with Major League Baseball. But Pete couldn't come to grips with that. And then he thought, hey, I'm betting on my team to win. Well, you'd still manipulate the lineup. Pete needed to compete. You can't spell compete without Pete. Michael Jordan, same way. They're wired that way, that they have to have something going on. There has to be something there. And Pete wasn't a good gambler. My bookie would say, because I'd say, who's Pete betting on? Now, there was a main bookie in Cincinnati, Indian Hills. And then my bookie was in my hometown. And then he would get bets laid off to him. If you're into gambling, then you know what I'm talking about. Don't want to get into the weeds too much. So I was aware. I was there in '86, and it was postseason. Pete was there, and he might have been working for somebody. But I remember he said to Bob Costas and me, who do you like today? It was Mets, Astros. When somebody says, who do you like today? That's gambling. Who do you like? And I know it. I know the code. Because people still ask me, who do you like? I go, no, don't bet on it. And so Pete was probably betting on the Astros and the Mets. And if Mike Scott was pitching, he was probably betting on Mike Scott to beat the Mets. But you can't put him in the Hall of Fame now because it's hypocritical. There was the opportunity. I was hoping that there would be something that was there. But if you open the door, are you opening the door then for everybody? Pete didn't cheat the game in the sense of what the steroid guys did. He broke a posted rule. It's right there. It's the cardinal rule. It's right there. Every clubhouse has it. There's nothing in there that says don't use steroids, but it tells you do not bet on baseball. And Pete did it. But Pete thought he was bigger than the game, and he found out that he wasn't. But great memories. Big Red Machine, best hitting lineup, certainly in National League history. And a lot of great memories. And Johnny Bench will join us coming up a little bit later on to talk about Pete. But passing away at the age of 83. You know who I felt really sad for was Dikembe Mutombo's family, because he passes away, and then hours later, it's announced that Pete Rose passed away. And it made me think about Farrah Fawcett was really, really famous. Charlie's Angels, she passes away, and then hours later, Michael Jackson passes away. And the coverage changed and went right to Michael Jackson, just like Pete Rose. And Dikembe Mutombo is one of the most giving people, not just athletes, I've ever encountered. He wanted to help people. In Africa, he wanted to be able to be a goodwill ambassador for the NBA. And when he got out of the game, he wanted to know how to give back. And David Stern would talk to me about certain players, and he always loved Dikembe because he said he wants to give. He wants to have a bigger impact. And I always appreciated that. So he passes away, and then hours later, it's Pete Rose.